The evolution of the current Formula 1 teams. After the recent renaming of two teams on the 2024 grid, it got us thinking about where they've all come from. While the likes of Ferrari have been around since the first year of the Formula 1 World Championship, some teams have very confusing histories. Let's take a look. Red Bull. Red Bull is arguably the most dominant team in recent history. They've had 6 Constructors' Championships and 7 Drivers' Championships with Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen, and it looks as though their winning streak won't be coming to an end just yet. However, they've not always been identifiable by their extremely unchanged livery. They first entered into F1 as Stewart Grand Prix in 1997. They were then purchased by Ford towards the end of the 1999 season and rebranded as Jaguar from 2000 until the end of 2004. They weren't hugely successful, and so the team was put up for sale. They were then purchased by the energy drinks company Red Bull and became the team we know today. Mercedes. In 1954, Mercedes-Benz joined Formula 1 and saw success with Juan Manuel Fangio, who took the championship in 1954 and 1955 with the team. In 1955, Mercedes-Benz withdrew from all motorsport until 1989, so the team we now know started off as Tyrrell, who started building their own car from the 1970 season. They stayed as Tyrrell until 1999, when they became British-American Racing after being bought by British American Tobacco. BAR, as they were known for short, partnered with Honda and then became the Honda Racing F1 Team in 2006. Honda departed the sport at the end of 2008 and were purchased by Ross Brawn for just £1 singular pound. It turned out to be a pretty good bargain, considering that they went on to win the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship in 2009. Mercedes acquired the team at the end of 2009 and returned to Formula 1 for the 2010 season, with Michael Schumacher even coming out of retirement to drive for them. Oh, that was the best news ever, to know that Schumi was coming back. The current team have taken 7 consecutive Drivers' Championships from 2014 to 2020 with Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, and 8 consecutive Constructors' Championships from 2014 to 2021. While at the moment they're probably under a bit of turmoil given the impending departure of Lewis Hamilton at the end of the year, if history is anything to go by, there's still hope that they'll perform well in the coming years. Ferrari. Ferrari entered into F1 in 1950, the very first year of the World Championship, making them F1's oldest and most legendary team. The team have won 16 Constructors' Championships and 15 Drivers, most notably with Michael Schumacher and more recently, I say recently, Kimi Raikkonen. The draw to the Scarlet team is irresistible. We've seen this with Hamilton's recent contract announcement with Ferrari for 2025, and while they've had a painful few years, Ferrari's status isn't shifting. Their rich and decorated history is far too strong for that. McLaren. McLaren were founded by New Zealand racing driver Bruce McLaren and made their debut in 1966, making them the second oldest team on the current grid. They were hugely dominant in the late 80s and early 90s and have won 12 World Championships with drivers like Niki Lauda, Ayrton Senna and Lewis Hamilton, who claimed his first championship with the team in 2008. While they've gone through many different livery designs and colourways, the most memorable being the famous red and white cars, the stunning chrome and red car, and now the vibrant papaya, McLaren have always been McLaren since their first race back in 1966. Aston Martin. Aston Martin first entered Formula 1 in 1959, but their short stint ended in 1960 after some poor results. However, this Aston Martin is not the same team we know now. The current team began as Jordan in 1991, and they stayed as Jordan until being purchased by the Midland Group in 2005 and racing as Midland F1 Racing in 2006. The team was then sold off to Spiker Cars and became Spiker F1 in 2007. They were then bought by Vijay Mallya and began racing as Force India in 2008. After just a teensy bit of controversy, just a bit of fraud and money laundering, the team was purchased by Racing Point, led by Lawrence Stroll. They became Racing Point Force India in 2018, which they then shortened to Racing Point in 2019. The year after, Lawrence Stroll took a sizable stake in the Aston Martin company, which allowed the team to rebrand to Aston Martin for 2021, and they've stayed as the recognisable racing green team since then. Alpine. Next up is Alpine, who have probably one of the most confusing histories in Formula 1 ever. They began as Toleman in 1981, giving the legendary Ayrton Senna his debut, and were purchased by Benetton in 1986. They rebranded and competed as Benetton and won the Drivers' Championship twice in 1994 and 1995 with none other than Michael Schumacher. They also won the Constructors' Championship in 95, being pipped to the top spot by Williams the year before. Renault later purchased the team, and they came onto the grid as Renault in 2002. They went on to take 2 further Drivers' and Constructors' Championships with Fernando Alonso in 2005 and 2006. Okay, now we're into the point where it's going to get a little bit confusing, so strap yourselves in. In 2011, Lotus Cars joined the scene and were a sponsor for Renault in the 2011 season, with the team being called Lotus Renault GP. Not great, as there was also a new team on the grid at the time called Lotus. I'm sure that made commentating very fun. Lotus then became the official constructor for the team in 2012. They stayed as Lotus until 2015, when Renault took ownership of the team again. They raced under the Renault name from 2016 until the end of 2020. Then comes Alpine, Renault's sports car brand, and in order to promote themselves, came into the picture in 2021. And this way they've stayed. Alpine. Please don't change your name for a while. Although, let's just make it more confusing. It's a bit more fun. Williams. Founded by Sir Frank Williams, the team entered into Formula 1 in 1977. The historic team have won 9 Constructors' Championships and 7 Drivers' Championships, with drivers such as Nigel Mansell, Damon Hill and Jacques Villeneuve. In 2020, Williams was acquired by Doralton Capital, with Sir Frank and his daughter Claire stepping down from being manager and deputy manager of the team. Much to the delight of F1 fans though, the legendary Williams name remains, and with James Vowles as a team principal, perhaps we will see them continue their upward trajectory this year. Visa Cash App RB. This team goes all the way back to 1985, when the team we now know as Visa Cash App RB competed as Minardi. They stayed as Minardi until 2006, when they were purchased by Red Bull to compete as their junior team, and rebranded to Toro Rosso for the 2006 season until 2020, when they then became AlphaTauri. For 2024, they have had yet another rebrand to one of the worst names we've ever heard, Visa Cash App RB. But at least they've got an alright livery, I suppose. Stake. What is now Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber, no comment, first entered into F1 as Sauber in 1993, and they ran as this until they were purchased by BMW and ran as BMW Sauber in 2006. However, BMW withdrew from F1 at the end of 2009, and so Sauber continued as they were before the partnership until they paired with Alfa Romeo in 2018. They raced under the Alfa Romeo name until they parted ways at the end of 2023. Stake then became the title sponsor, which obviously has caused this absolute catastrophe of a name now. But what next for the team? Well, Audi will be taking over in 2026, and you best believe that's going to sound so much better than Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber. Haas. Haas are the most recent team on the grid, entering into Formula 1 in 2016. After Marussia collapsed during 2014, Haas bought their Banbury headquarters and so entered into F1 2 years later. With Gunther Steiner, gone but not forgotten, as team principal, and Grosjean and Gutierrez in the driver's seats, they finished in P8 in the Constructors' Championship. They also finished in P8 the following year, but knocked it out the park in 2018, where they finished in a ridiculous P5. So with Haas being the most recent team on the grid, they've not gone through any name changes. Not yet anyway. Andretti, are you coming? And that's it, the history of all the F1 teams currently on the grid laid out before you. Let's hope they don't do too much rebranding soon, otherwise this video is going to be completely irrelevant and we're going to have to do it again. What do you think to the recent rebrands of some of the teams? And do you see more rebrands happening in the future? Let us know in the comments.